In general, minimum wage going up is actually a very bad thing. Unless, of course, that particular country or province or state or whatever increases the living wage, not just the minimum wage. Essentially meaning that no matter what the minimum wage is, it can be very low or very high, but no matter what, everybody has to be able to stay above the poverty line. We're in Canada, and it's actually worse than the US. It's very difficult to work a minimum wage and be above the poverty line. In fact, it's almost impossible. Minimum wage has been about $11 for the last few years. Right now it's about $11.60, and it goes up once in a while, but usually by 10 cents. So we still range between $11 to $12. Right now I think it's like $11.60. In January, it's going up to $14 an hour. People are excited, but they just don't understand why this is a problem. See, here's what is going to actually happen. First of all, jobs themselves have to readjust for how they're paying their employees if they're going to be paying them more money. And this is a big jump. It's not like it increased by 10 cents. It's going from $11.60 to $14. That's over $2 per hour. When you go across all your employees, that's a lot of money. Companies have to readjust their finances and their budgets in order to pay their employees. Now, do they get more funds to pay their employees? Usually, no. Actually, what they do is, in order to pay people, and obviously their main priority is the full-timers, they actually lay people off and cut back hours. So, you may get more money, whether if you're full-time or part-time, but since you'll have decreased hours due to having hours cut back, or maybe even being laid off, in the end, you'll end up actually making less money because you'll be working less hours, and that $2 difference per hour is not going to balance out for the hours that you lose. The big seniority full-timers who are not going to get their hours cut back because they have seniority and are full-time, they may benefit, sure. But all the people who are not seniors at that job, or have not been there for very long, or are part-timers, are all going to get fucked. If you work minimum now, ideally, even if you're full-time, you're making about $1,300 per month. That's barely above the poverty line. Now, I live near Toronto, which, of course, as you may or may not know, is one of the most expensive cities in the world. Here, the average price of an apartment ranges about $1,100 a month. And even at $1,100, you can barely even get a one-bedroom apartment. My apartment is a one-bedroom, and I'm in a basement. Now, if you're taking a place in somebody's house, like a room or a basement, it's usually less money because it's in a house. An apartment building will cost more. If you're in a basement, it can range from $700 to $900 usually, and if you're in a building, it can range from about $1,000 to $1,300 or more, depending on size, location, etc. If you're making $1,300 a month, all of your money is basically going to your rent. How can you afford transportation and food, etc.? Holy shit, guys, welcome to 2021, where I'm adding in a portion to this video. I know what you're thinking, why didn't I just remake the video? Because I actually like the contrast of 2017 to 2021. Regardless, something I forgot to mention in this video, but it's very important, is how small businesses get screwed over, and a lot of them actually go out of business because they can't keep up with the higher minimum wage that they have to pay their employees. Now, this sort of thing usually does not affect multi-billion-dollar businesses like McDonald's or something like that, even though they do increase the prices of their products, but it really affects small businesses that are independently owned and only hire a few people to run it. If they have to pay the minimum wage to all their employees, they are the ones who are the most likely to do hour cutbacks, employee cutbacks, and many of them even go out of business because they can't keep up with the demand. Another thing that I really wanted to add to this video is I really hate the conservative excuse of like, you're not meant to live on minimum wage, okay? You're meant to work a minimum wage when you're a teenager going through college, but then when you're finished college, you're supposed to have a much better job. I hate this point for two reasons. Number one, many people don't manage that. There are many people who don't go to college because they can't afford it, or do go to college but can't find a job. And the second reason is, I don't know how bad it is in the US, but what I can tell you is that over here, many jobs, especially if they're entry level, even if they require university or college, they will still start you off at minimum wage. I think this happens a lot more often in modern day than it did many years ago. And it's happening because jobs are a lot more strict and are trying to do everything they can to not pay their employees. But when you look at jobs that require college, like being a secretary or working at a bank or something like that, those jobs require college, but will still start you off at minimum wage. This also includes jobs like data entry, for example. So it's not just as simple as go to college, make more money. There's many jobs that require college and still pay minimum. And then, of course, people who don't go or couldn't go. So it's just a really unfair and narrow-minded point. The most important thing is cost of living. Cost of living goes up insane amounts. Again, you will actually end up paying. Let's just say you do your grocery shopping a week at a time, and you pay, I don't know, $100. You go to the grocery store once minimum wage goes up, and all the companies and stores have adjusted to the prices. You buy the same groceries, you'll be paying about $130. Add it up in a whole month, because I said by week, that's $120. 30 times 4 is $120. So not only do you lose money due to cutback hours, but you also pay more for cost of living. Landlords will increase their rents. If you're a homeowner, your mortgage will go up. Your bills go up, such as like hydro, all that stuff. Internet companies are going to charge you more. Grocery stores are going to charge you more. Gas goes up for your car. Insurance goes up. Everything goes up. You're not making more money. People need to understand. You get a higher minimum wage, you lose money. But in general, minimum wage is a problem. It's a problem the way it is, and it's a problem the way it will be. We need a living wage. No matter what the minimum wage is, as long as cost of living goes up, people are still below the poverty line. If it's $11.60, you make about $1,300 an hour, and your monthly bills are about that much. If minimum goes up to $14, you'll make what? $1,500 a month. Maybe $1,550 a month. But then your bills also go up to almost that amount. So you're not actually making anything more. You're just spending more in the end. We can only really help people if minimum wage goes up and cost of living doesn't. Or if we implement some sort of system across our countries where everybody is safe just above the poverty line no matter what. It is not fair to anybody in the world that they should have to work a second job or struggle working full-time at a minimum wage job. And one other factor I want to throw out there are immigrants. Do you know how many immigrants there are coming from other countries who had high jobs? Like, let's just say you came from the Philippines and you were a doctor there. So you have the skills of a doctor in the Philippines. But then you come here to Canada or the US, and since they don't like the education over there, they put you down to like the lowest level of nursing, for example. You're still in the field of medical care, but in one of the lowest levels because you just don't have the schooling that's offered within Canada. You have the education over in the Philippines. And it happens with every job. It's not just a medical field. That happens in every job that has tiers, and then they get a high tier in a different country, and then they come here and they're brought down to the bottom, or they can't get into that field at all, and they're stuck working at a grocery store. Does that seem fair either? We need to implement a living wage, and we also need to understand that increasing the minimum wage does absolutely nothing at all to help people.